What's up, y'all? My name's Vermilion. I'm a Masters Jungler, and I'm here to talk about Gwen. For the start of Season 15, Gwen has been a solid jungler, but not the best. She functions well in the full clear meta, farming pretty efficiently and being a great scaler, but she's never been super strong. That is until patch 15.6, where Riot gave her a mini rework and she skyrocketed in popularity and in win rate and in tier placement. She's become the number one jungler. She's S+ tier for the last two patches, and even though she received a hotfix nerf after 15.6 and a follow-up nerf on 15.7, she is still considered one of the best junglers in the game. And we are going to talk about in this video why she got so strong, what the changes specifically did to her kit, and how she fits in the meta so well. Full clear junglers are where it's at right now. You are either playing a hyper aggressive invade strong jungler, or you are playing a full clear farming efficient gank tempo jungler, and Gwen fits extremely strongly into the latter category as this mid-game power spike champion now that she has transitioned away from her hyperscaling role, and you should pick her up, and this video will help you do that. Yay! So in patch 15.6, Gwen received a mini rebalancing rework to her entire kit. All of her abilities and stats were kind of adjusted to be stronger at different stages of the game, and this rebalancing made her so powerful that they actually had to hotfix nerf her in the same patch, so let's go over them. Her base health was increased from 620 to 650, and her health growth was reduced from 115 to 110. This means that she was very, very tanky early on. She was better in lane, and she was better in the jungle, and this health offset would equalize at level 6, but this was really, really good for her early skirmishing power and made her consistent in the early game. This would be hotfix nerfed immediately, and her health would go back to 620, and her armor would get reduced even on top of that to reduce her healthiness in the jungle because of how powerful having early health is. So the health got canceled out, but the health growth reduction still is in play. So overall, Gwen has less health than normal, but that's okay. Her passive 1000 Cuts, which applies on all of her auto attacks and abilities, had her AP ratio reduced by 0.05%, and the monster cap damage was reduced to 5 from 10. So this is an overall damage reduction across the board. It doesn't really matter that much early on for the AP ratio, but the base damage was kind of bad because it does apply on your Q and your abilities, and so her clear kind of seemed like it would be affected. Her Q final snip base damage was increased by 10 across all ranks, which is pretty nice and a good compensation for that base monster damage cap being lowered, and it kind of offset that damage and made the jungle clear all right. Her W got changed to be a little bit better early on, but scale worse. It used to scale from 22 to 30 at all ranks. Now it sits at 25 at all ranks. The AP scaling, though, got changed from 7% to 5% at all ranks. So this is very nice early on, and later into the game you would notice a difference, but you don't put points into your W until you're level 14 to 18, and that doesn't make that big of a difference. Your bonus resistances you're getting at that stage of the game aren't as impactful as they are early on in the game, so you were getting a lot more value out of this early from level 4 to level 10 to level 13 when this is your 1-point wonder, and therefore this was just a better ability to skirmish with because you got that 3 extra resistance early on. And the AP ratio didn't really matter early in the game, but it does matter like level 10 and stuff. But her E is the big change that she received. The E skip and slash base damage changed to 12 to 20 from 15 at all ranks. This meant that early on it was a little bit weaker, but as soon as you got it to level 3, it was stronger, but the AP ratio got increased to 25% from 20%. So overall, the damage is a little bit lower early on, especially when you have no AP, to being significantly better once you got this to rank 3, and the AP ratio was much higher. So this was really, really good for Gwen. it allowed her to just do more damage with her E auto attacks, which is a very powerful part of her kit. And the big thing is that the cooldown got changed as well. So the cooldown reduced to 12 to 8 seconds from 13 to 11 seconds, which seems nice. But the big change in Gwen came from the E cooldown change. And so the cooldown got reduced to 12 to 8 seconds from 13 to 11 seconds. And on top of that, the cooldown refund got changed to 50% from a scaling 25 to 65%. So you used to have Gwen with like an 8-second cooldown on your E early game that would scale really, really high up to, I believe, 4 seconds or something base, and then you have ability haste on top of that. So once you max your E in old Gwen, you would have that 4-second E cooldown. But now it's 50% at all ranks, which means your E cooldown is now 6 to 4 seconds. And this is really, really nice because that early game E cooldown is extremely good. I believe Gwen's E uptime is like 5 seconds, or maybe like 5 or 4 seconds. And so you have a ton of E uptime early on when you only have 1 point in this ability, which is extremely good for Gwen. And on top of that, you have the cooldown at 4 seconds late game, which just feels so good. And 5 seconds at level 3, like mid game, you are just so much more powerful having it at 50%. And with the damage buff, this allowed Gwen to reposition in like grub fights and dragon fights so much better because you have that E up more frequently, and you're able to maximize your use of it and also position with your W better because you can use your E more frequently, which is very important. And another huge change was the change to her R. The base damage got reduced per needle by 5 damage, which is a little annoying as you're shooting 1, 3, and then 5 needles, so it does get affected. And the AP ratio per needle was also reduced because Gwen was kind of functioning as this like one-shot nuke champ in team fights where she would just E forward or press W then E into it and then spam her R and one-shot people. So the damage is pretty down across the board. The AP ratio got reduced to 8% from 10%, but the slow got increased to 60% at all ranks, which is a 20% increase. It used to go 40 to 60%. And the subsequent slow increased to 25% at all ranks from 15 to 25%. So your utility from this got increased a lot early on, which meant that you were able to skirmish a lot more early on, because if you hit somebody with that first tick of your R, they're now 60% slowed, and you're Eing forward to them, and you're keeping that 25% subsequent slow on them. It felt really, really good to fight with this change to Gwen. And so even though we have the damage reduction on her needlework and the damage reduction on her passive, and you're having the base resistances up and your passive damage is down, your E damage is up and the utility on your R is up, and it just feels really good. And Gwen is also felt really good, and she has soared to be the number 1 jungler. And so, like I said, she got hotfixed very quickly, where her health was reduced down and her armor was reduced, which is a big change in the jungle, but she is still strong. And in patch 15.7, they've even nerfed her again, where they put her Q final snip damage back to where it was before the change. And so this is just a nerf. And then her W bonus resistances got reduced back to where they are, and the AP ratios increased. And so she just got her W nerfed pretty hard. Even though you got the AP scaling back to what it used to be, it no longer scales from 22 to 28 as it used, or 22 to 30 as it used to. Now it's just 22 at all ranks. So they've kind of walked back the Q changes, they've walked back the W buff a little bit, but when it comes down to it, you're still holding on to that E damage, you're still holding on to that E cooldown reduction, you're still holding on to the R utility from your R. So overall, Gwen still feels really good. I still think she's an extremely powerful jungler. She's probably not the number 1 jungler anymore, but she's definitely like an A tier jungler and feels great. So you definitely need to play her if you haven't already. She takes a lot of games to really get used to, and even I'm still learning a lot about her, but she's super duper fun and feels so powerful when you get ahead. So let's talk about her runes, her items, and a little bit of how to play her and how to clear. So let's talk about runes that you would take for Gwen. I think that Gwen has a pretty well-defined rune page in the jungle that I think applies to 90% of junglers in the game, and that is this rune page right here, which is the standard Conqueror page. This is Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Alacrity, Coup de Grace with Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight from the Inspiration Tree, along with the attack speed, adaptive force, and health scaling shards. This rune page can work on like 9 out of 10 junglers, and I think on Gwen you could take this every single game, and it's good. I think there are some niche options Gwen can also take, and we'll go over them a little bit, but primarily this will be the good page you want. For her keystones, I could see an argument being made for Press the Attack or Lethal Tempo. These are alright. Press the Attack is definitely more viable than Lethal Tempo. Press the Attack gives you that burst of adaptive damage when you proc it and extra bonus damage amp, and Lethal Tempo allows you to get your attack speed really, really high, but Lethal Tempo kind of has anti-synergy with your Q, and Press the Attack doesn't give you adaptive damage like Conqueror does, and Gwen loves adaptive damage because that's AP, and her scalings are great. And so Conqueror is almost always the rune you're going to want to take because of the adaptive damage and the healing you get at max stacks. Similarly, Triumph is the best, and you're not going to want Presence of Mind or Absorb Life because of the jungle. You don't take those, and this just gives you gold and healing. Legend Alacrity is also her best because of her scaling with attack speed, but Ability Haste could be okay, but attack speed is just much better because it's one of the main stats that Gwen wants, and this is one of the best ways to get it. And in the bottom row, Coup de Grace and Cut Down and Last Stand are all good. They're all damage. Coup de Grace does more damage to low health champions, Cut Down does more damage to high health champions, and Last Stand does more damage to lower health you are. I have a personal preference for Last Stand. I think Last Stand is really cool when you're skirmishing with junglers and you run into them and get really low health and you have those close fights. This will give you the edge in those fights, and when you fight to the death, you get that extra damage amp, which feels good. But Coup de Grace also gives you that damage amp when they're low. I don't know. I just think it's fun. Some other secondary runes you might run with this page are Sudden Impact and Treasure Hunter, which I think could be alright if you want to be more aggressive. This gives you extra damage after dashing, and Treasure Hunter gives you more gold per takedown you get, which could snowball you. The Sorcerer Tree doesn't really have that much that's good. Nimbus Cloak is alright, Celerity is alright, especially if you have Ghost. Water Walking and Gathering Storm could be good too. Water Walking for the early fighting and Gathering Storm for the scaling. The Resolve Tree doesn't really have anything that you'd want to go. Maybe Unflinching, maybe Conditioning, Overgrowth, but it's not that good at Gwen. And maybe there could be an argument made for Approach Velocity, but Cosmic Insight is just so good with the Summoner spell Haste that you get for your Smite, and your Ghost / Flash, so I recommend this. If you're going a Domination tree, I could see Electrocute maybe being good, but Electrocute is really overbuffed right now and very strong, but then you're running Electrocute Gwen and you have to proc Electrocute by, auto Q, I don't know. It's alright. Not that good, but you would maybe go a page like this, and that's fine. Dark Harvest and Hail Blades suck. If you're going a Sorcery page, well, if you're going this Electrocute page, I would recommend going an aggressive page like this. So you go Domination into Precision. Don't go with any other tree if you're going Electrocute, but also don't go Electrocute. In the Sorcery page, the only option is Phase Rush. This is a utility page that I would only ever consider going into really specific matchups, and only if you're like a Gwen expert. Like maybe you play against Trundle or Nasus or Xin Zhao and you need to get away and your move positioning is like hyper important, and it would be really niche, but I could see it working. And in this page, you would go Nimbus Cloak and Celerity, and then probably Water Walking or Gathering Storm, depending. And secondary, you would probably want to go Triumph Alacrity, or you'd want to go Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight. I would avoid the Domination tree for this page. And this is, again, niche and alright. Never take the Resolve tree primary, or else I'm coming for you. And the Inspiration tree, I guess First Strike could be good. And if you're going First Strike, it's fine. You get the damage amp, you get the damage amp from attacking champions before you, and the gold based on that damage amp. And you'll get, like, Magical Footwear, Cosmic Insight, and Triple Tonic. And in this page, this is kind of an aggressive page, so I would definitely recommend going Sudden Impact or in Treasure Hunter or Triumph and Alacrity. These two rune pages synergize well, but again, this is going over it for fun. I think in 95 to 100% of your games, you should go a rune page that looks like this. You really can't go wrong with this. Conqueror is amazing on Gwen and feels super good. It synergizes with everything she wants, giving her healing and damage, and all these runes are perfect for her and most junglers, frankly. So this is a really good page. So let's talk about Gwen items right now in the jungle. Gwen has a pretty standard, efficient build right now that I will recommend, but I want to give all possible options. So the very first decision you're going to be making, as always, is your jungle item. And as Gwen, I think you really only have two choices, and that is red and blue. And these are, of course, damage versus utility. The red jungle item, of course, will give you the damage and slow on attack when you first attack somebody when it transforms, and the blue will give you a ton of movement speed when you move through any bush or finish any jungle camp, which is great utility and good for running people down. I think these are both fantastic choices and synergize with everything Gwen would want extremely well. I would go blue personally, like 80 to 90% of the time. I think red could be good, but you're mostly going to want to go blue. It's just good. And don't buy a potion level 1, ever. And then we are going to talk about her items. So Gwen wants one item early, and that is Nashor's Tooth. This fits everything Gwen wants. This gives her the attack speed she needs because she needs to stack her auto attacks to get her Q to 4 stacks before using it. And it also helps with her E passive and her normal passive. It also gives a good amount of ability power and ability haste and makes your auto attacks do extra damage based on your ability power. This is a perfect Gwen item and a fantastic item to rush. And you will go this item in almost every single game you play on Gwen. And you can't go wrong building this item. This item is perfect for Gwen. I definitely recommend rushing this. I've seen people go Lich Bane first, but it's not as good in my opinion. It gives you that attack speed on your first attack and it's really good for burst, but it's fine. It's not that good. So I don't recommend it, but you could try it. And next, Gwen's build has actually changed. She used to be a champion who always tried to build Deathcap second, but she doesn't do that as much anymore. Now you only want to go Deathcap if you're super fed. Her scalings did take a hit, and so I see most people going Riftmaker second now. Riftmaker is another item that synergizes really well with Gwen. She's a melee AP champion, so she likes the health. The ability power is high, the ability haste is good, and the Omni Vamp is really, really good on top of the stacking damage amp that you get. So if you don't know, when you're having Riftmaker, which is one of the best items in the game right now, after like 4 seconds of combat, you get 8% damage amp, and then when you have that 8% damage amp, you get Omni Vamp. That is extremely good with Gwen, who's doing true damage, and Omni Vamp on true damage is one of the most overpowered stats in the game. It's what makes champions like Camille so strong, because on her Q2 with the Ravenous Hydra, she is, or whatever it's called now, she gets Omni Vamp on that, and getting Omni Vamp on true damage is just crazy. So this is an extremely good item with Gwen, and you could go the second on most Gwen builds. If you are looking to play more aggressively, I've also seen Shadow Flame do well. And of course, like I said, you could do Deathcap if you're just like having so much gold. Like if you back, like let's say you have Nashers and you back and get a needlessly large rod because you're planning to go Shadow Flame and you just had the gold. Let's say you back with 1200 gold, so it was kind of awkward to buy the Riftmaker components. You buy a needlessly large rod, and then you're on the map, and you have 2400 gold the next time you back. Just buy Deathcap. You can't go wrong with Deathcap. It's a fantastic item for Gwen. When you're rounding out these main two builds, which I will continue with, you can honestly fill out the item that you missed on the other build. So you can go Riftmaker here, you can go Shadow Flame here. I would recommend going this first build more than the second build. Actually, if you're going Shadow Flame, I'd probably recommend just going Deathcap Void Staff. If you're going to go a build like this, where you're just stacking AP, because that's the benefit of Shadow Flame over Riftmaker, I would just stack AP and go Nashers, Shadow Flame, Deathcap Void Staff. That could be a solid AP stacking build. But if you're going this build where you're going Nashers, Riftmaker, then you probably want to go more like standard utility build, which would be Nashers, Riftmaker, Shadow Flame for the extra magic damage, but you could also slot in Zanya's there if you want to be defensive. You could also put Void Staff in there. You can potentially get Cosmic Drive in there, although I don't think that's that good. You can get the Banshees component. I've even seen Bloodletter's Curse. There are lots of good items on Gwen. I mean, I've even seen people go Malignants, but I think this is like a really, really solid standard build. And similarly, this is a really solid standard build in this order. Or this order. I mean, I guess you can mix up like Zanya's and Shadow Flame, but usually you don't want to delay your Shadow Flame too much because it's a good item early on. And I think these two builds are the most solid Gwen builds that are in the game. I think, obviously, you could throw in like Dark Seal and Mashai's in here. And like I was saying, you could throw in like, what is this called? Verdict Barrier. You can go this item. I think these are niche items on Gwen, but very powerful items overall. All of these items, I think, you can't go wrong with by building, but you don't want to finish Banshees, and these are like utility depending on what you need. Like you want to go Lichbane if like you just want to like one shot somebody as you have your Q stacked, you E towards them, auto them with your Lichbane, and then one shot them, and you would go Deathcap with a build like this. Like yeah, if you want the Lichbane build, you would have to go like this build. You'd have to go full AP because this is just one shot. But yeah, definitely try out these two builds. I tend to prefer this first build. I think the Omnivamp makes playing Gwen easier. It also gives you health, which is really, really nice to make you a little bit more tanky in your W. And yeah, this is a really solid build. I realized I didn't talk about this when we were doing the balance rundown of Gwen, but let's talk about her abilities and what they do so you have an idea of what she does. So her passive is 1000 Cuts, which means her basic attacks, her on hit, the center of her Snip Snip, which is her Q, and her Needlework, which is her ultimate, all deal bonus magic damage equal to 1% plus the AP scaling of the target's maximum health, which is how she's able to deal with tanks so well. And this 1000 Cuts is modified based on the target, so it heals Gwen for 50% of the post-mitigation damage dealt against champions, plus scaling with her AP, which is how she heals so much in fights. It also deals magic damage against minions that are below 40% health, which is great for her jungle. And then it also has a magic damage cap against monsters. This doesn't matter for, for jungle. The magic damage against monsters is what matters. But this is hidden power of Gwen and what makes her so strong. This is how she's able to melt tanks. This is how she's able to heal. This is why she loves building AP so much, because she has great scaling with max health damage as well as her healing. It's just overall really, really powerful, and do not underestimate this part of her kit. It's why she loves stacking AP, and it's what makes her so strong. Her Q, Snip Snip, is Gwen's basic attacks generate a stack of Snippy on hit for 6 seconds, which stacks up to 4 times on subsequent attacks, and when you use it, it does her iconic snipping attack, which is like the definition of Gwen. So she snips at least twice with her scissors and a cone in the target direction over the cast time, dealing magic damage per snip to all allies in the area, with the final snip dealing increased damage. The center of each snip converts 50% of the damage to true damage, and it also applies your passive 1000 Cuts. Snip Snip deals 75% damage against minions and executes them on the first instance if they're below 20% health. So this is something that's very good for Gwen, and like what makes or breaks good Gwens. In some capacity, hitting the center of your Q is extremely important, and that's why it's so important to position well. If you hit the center of your Q, you're applying your passive, you're healing, you're doing true damage, you are just melting through champions, and it's extremely important to learn how to aim this. It's also important to learn the rhythm of Gwen. Gwen is a champion who wants to auto attack 4 times Q, auto attack 4 times Q, auto attack 4 times Q. This is how Gwen works. When you get enough ability haste and you have this ability max, you're going to have this up every like 2 seconds, and you are going to be doing that. You're going to be auto attacking 4 times queuing, auto attack 4 times queuing. You're going to be weaving E's in there. It is going to be pretty hectic with your abilities later on, but it is extremely important to get the middle of your Q on champions, and sometimes even use your E to reposition to make sure you're hitting that final snip or the middle of your Q on champions, because it's that important. Her W is Hallowed Mist, which is her iconic ability. Gwen is immune. Gwen summons a Hallowed Mist from her current location lasting 4 seconds. Hallowed Mist can be recast after 0.5 seconds and does so automatically if Gwen attempts to leave the area. While inside the mist, Gwen becomes ghosted, which means she passes through there's no unit collision, and she gains a bunch of armor and magic resist, and most importantly is untargetable to all enemies outside of the mist. So this is her iconic ability. This is when you walk into fights and you say, nobody is touching me and I am dealing all my damage. And the use of this ability is what defines good Gwens from bad Gwens. Obviously, hitting your Q is important, but knowing when to W, knowing what abilities to W, and positioning yourself in your W is the most important thing Gwen can do. And when you play Gwen, you'll notice this. When you play Gwen, you will sometimes have moments where you are fighting against a champion and you're on the edge of your W and they can't click you, and they could be a melee champion, right? It could be Xin Shao, it could be Graves, it could be Misfortune, it doesn't matter who it is, but that champion will be so frustrated. They will be standing there walking around, clicking the ground, looking like a dummy, and you'll be one-shotting them. And that is the best feeling in the world. And it is hard to set up and takes a lot of practice. And it will come with time, but you have to play a lot of Gwen to figure out how to do it and not just like W like floundering through every fight. So definitely think before using this ability and get good with it as you play her. Her E, Skip and Flash, is her active. It allows her to dash to a target location, which you can go over walls, pretty thick walls too, at it, and empowers her basic attacks within the next 4 seconds to deal magic damage on hit, and you gain attack speed and attack range. This is an enormous quality of life ability for Gwen. It feels super, super good. You pretty much want to be fighting with your E constantly as you have your attack range and extra damage. You also get the cooldown reduced by 50%, as we said in the ability rebalance the first time you auto attack. So the cooldown says 12 seconds, but in reality the cooldown is 6 seconds, because in almost every scenario, unless you're just running away and recalling, you're going to be auto attacking something, and so the cooldown is pretty short. And if you look closely, the uptime is 4 seconds, and the cooldown at max rank is also 4 seconds, even without ability haste, if you auto attack. And so this is a really, really good ability. You can have constant uptime with this in team fights, and it also resets your basic attack timer, so you could auto attack E on monster camps to maximize your damage, and you could also do that in team fights. When your E comes back up, you could auto E auto. You'll feel your attack speed increase from this. You'll feel very mobile from this, and you will feel like you can reposition your Q with this. It's extremely powerful. Some things to know about this ability are its synergy with your W. A lot of newer Gwen players don't really know how to use her W well, and you'll see them E in, and they'll just slam their keyboard and press W, and all of a sudden they're just sitting in their W, in the middle of their W, and they might be on top of other champions. What very good Gwen players will do is they will walk up to a fight and they will W first and then E. When you do this, you are on the very edge of your W. Your W range is a little bit larger than your E range, so if you W then E, you'll be on the very edge of it, and you'll be fighting in your W with the enemy outside of your W, which is ideal. But you also should learn the walls you could hop over and how to reposition in fights and so many things. Her E is amazing. And finally, we have her ultimate Needlework, which is her ranged cast ability. This is an active that launches a needle in the direction that does magic damage and slows them by 60% for 1.5 seconds, which is crazy. And then it can be recast twice, and you have a big delay on this, actually. It's a 6-second delay, so you could hold off on casting, and it's in between each cast. So you could do 1, 6 seconds, 2, 6 seconds, 3. And sometimes you want to do 1, 2, 3 right away. And you could do that too if you just want to burst somebody down, but it could be very helpful to hold on to it because of the slow. So with the recast, it's no additional cost. There's a 1-second cooldown between it, and each cast refreshes the duration. It increases the number of needles launched by 2, and the needles hit beyond the first supply is slow of 25%, beyond the 60%. So your first cast will only have 1 needle and slow them by 60% and do 1 needle damage. Your second cast will slow them by 60% and have 3 needles and do 3 needle damage. And your third cast will do 5 needles and 5 needle damage. So it's extremely, extremely powerful. You can really melt people with this. You can see the magic damage per needle at level 16 is 90 plus 8% of AP, which means if you are casting the third cast of this, this is 90 times 5, it's 450 plus 45% AP, and you might have 500 AP, and that's a ton of damage, and it's AoE, and it's hard to dodge, and it slows you by 60%. Her ultimate is extremely powerful. Using all these abilities together, Gwen's kit is extremely synergistic, and the more you play her, the more you'll get it. The more you'll be using her passive with her Q and her R to really stack up damage and heal you, and the more you'll be repositioning with E and maximizing the effectiveness of your W. But she has a pretty steep learning curve, so just go out there and practice, and you won't really know until you learn. And now we know her whole kit, we know her items, abilities. Finally, I want to go over her clear and how to get it as low as possible and maximize your movement around the map or maximize farm, depending on what you want to do with Gwen. And we'll go over that with some video. For Gwen's maximum efficiency fast 5 clear, you'll start here and hit the blast plant, which gets you 1 stack of your Q passive, and then walk up to raptors, stack your passive 4 times, and Q on the raptors. And you want to make sure you're hitting the big raptor with the middle of your Q. Me missing 2 auto attacks on the raptor, but it's okay. Here, you're going to level your E, and you'll actually hit the red once to keep your Q stacks up, but you could just go over the wall like this and keep attacking. And you want to make sure you use your E as an auto attack reset like that, and make sure you're always queuing with 4 stacks. And you'll just finish off this camp real quick. Walk up to your red, auto Q, and similarly you'll cut it a little bit, but we are going towards our top side here. And we will just make our way up, and you can see, like, I've gotten a little low on this clear, but if you do it perfectly, you don't really have an issue. We'll put 2 points in our Q here. You don't need your W to clear, and you could just maximize your damage by leveling 2 points in Q. And E forward and start doing the same thing with this wolf camp. And if you don't attack the small ones and the small raptors like I have been, you can get like 5 or so seconds off this, but just kite it slowly towards your next camp up here, which will be Gromp, and you get your 4 stacks and Q it. And as always, you want to be like kiting the camps a little, using your E to reset your auto attack. And just with this, it's 305, but we are doing it pretty well here. We can actually queue and get both the camps there at once to save a little bit of time, which is something you can practice in your jungles, just like doing 2 camps at once. And, you know, here with like a very unserious and not perfect clear, we're full clearing at 327, leveling our E or W, and then onto Scuttle immediately, which feels pretty good, right? I mean, this is an unrefined clear where we did some min-maxing, but the best part about this build is if you do this clear, it's the fast 5 clear for a reason, and the reason I call it this is because you could go right back. I know I backed for like a silly moment there, but you could see that my camp is respawning right here, and so if you were to choose to, you could go over here and you wouldn't waste your E, you would be waiting for it to actually spawn, but you could do this camp again, and this camp will respawn, and by the time you finish this camp, because you skipped your red and did this camp, you can also do this camp. You'll hit level 5, and then you could recall and run to your top side. You could see that this is respawning on the minimap. So that is an option as your raptors clear. You could also start on red and do red, golems, raptors, wolves, Gromp, blue. That is a faster clear. You'll probably clear 5 seconds faster because there is time wasted walking from raptors past red to golems. So if you do red, golems, raptors, there's less time wasted. Your overall pathing is just here, here, instead of here, here. So it is a little bit faster, but your camps will respawn more slowly, and so you're sacrificing farm efficiency for clear speed, which sometimes is worth it. And let's go over the blue start clear. So with the blue side clear, you'll see I like to do something similar where you get one early Q stack early on from the blast plant. You'll hit it as your camp is spawning, and you get that one extra passive stack of your Q in order to do the extra damage on your snip snip. And it does speed up your jungle a tiny bit, but you know, every little bit of efficiency matters, and you want to kite this as much as you can as a melee champion, making it run around. You could smite it, and then we go on for our Gromp, which we're going to use our E for an auto attack reset. And similarly, we're going to kite this one, making sure that you always have 4 stacks, and using your E as an auto attack reset, or making sure you always Q with 4 stacks. And we'll kite it up first, and then we'll kite it down. And when you get it to like this health value, you could kite it down and finish it off halfway to your wolves. And we just keep farming here. I didn't get my full 4 stacks there, but that's okay. I just wanted to cycle the cooldown as fast as possible. I actually don't know if that slows me down too much, but here we're going to be able to finish this like so, and you can drag it away. If you practice this, it's extremely helpful because you can get your 4 stack Q onto the raptor camp, which is an enormous boon. Speeds up your clear time a lot. And similarly, we can do our red. I got a little nervous there. I thought I was going to miss it for a second. And you can see this clear is faster than our other clear that we did. We're doing our red so fast, and we're going to be able to hop this wall right here. And we're doing this at 3:05, so this is just a very standard blue start with like only one advanced thing of kiting the wolf across to the raptors. But here we are, full clearing at 3:17 pretty easily. You know, this was not min-maxed, and we're running up to Scuttle. Similarly, you could drop a ward here, you know, go invade, do something depending on how the enemy jungle is doing. And I definitely recommend being able to do these clears. One of the most important things that distinguishes a like Masters jungler from a Platinum or Emerald or lower jungle is just having that extra 5 seconds early on. It makes a big difference and allows you to have a lot more agency and allows you to farm more quickly because I am able to reset or gank, and then my camps are spawning faster and I'm snowballing an experience lead. And that is something you should practice. And again, this, I have a ton of practice, but this is like unserious talking through, not like 100% focused jungle clearing. And so it can be more efficient, it can be better, it can be faster. And you want to practice to be able to get to this level that you can focus and get your clear down to a 3:15 blue start or a 3:15 red start or a 3:25 efficient raptor start. Like, practice this and get it down, and you'll feel very confident on Gwen. And from doing that, you could start learning how to do her combos, fighting, and get really strong. And this is the base of it. So, hope this helps. And good luck in your Gwen games. Let me know how they go.